Right, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. The NSC examination is one of the largest and most complex national undertakings of our democracy. Outside the general and local government elections that we undertake every 5 years respectively, there's no other national logistical undertaking that compares. This year, over 900,000 learners sat for the NSC examinations. They were invigilated by thousands of invigilators. Their scripts are being marked by over 51,000 trained markers, mark capturers, and moderators. These markers are in 183 marking centers across the country. They work together in a collaborative manner to ensure that candidate scripts are marked accurately and fairly. It is through the markers' diligence that we were able to detect a breach in our exams. This morning, I want to inform the country that our systems have worked exactly as the way that they were designed to do, to detect, to isolate, to investigate, and address any manipulation of the NSC examinations. Allow me to take you through the events that have transpired. The 2025 NSC examination cycle began on Tuesday, the 21st of October, with the writing of Computer Applications Tech Paper 1. They concluded on the 27th of November 2025. According to our national monitoring, the exams across the country were administered effectively and efficiently without major incident. Around 7,000 exam centers across the country operated with precision, professionalism, and a shared commitment to fairness. Millions of scripts were effectively collected, securely transported, and sorted in preparation for marking. We are immensely grateful to all the officials, the invigilators, the principals, the teachers, and learners who contributed to the smooth process. How the marking process is progressing? Marking commenced on the 1st of December in 183 marking centers across the country, led by thousands of highly trained markers. Preliminary reports indicate that the marking is progressing extremely well. Marking is scheduled to conclude on Saturday, the 13th of December, and the capturing of marks will proceed on schedule. South Africa uses a multi-layered, quality-controlled marking system which includes the appointment of expert markers based on strict criteria, the development of detailed marking guidelines, the hosting of marking standardization meetings, and the training of markers. The authorization of markers, the moderation across all subjects, and compliance to a tolerance range in the marking, rigorous checks for consistency and accuracy. It is in this robust system that enabled us to detect an anomaly in 6 scripts in Gauteng. Our well-trained markers were able to pick up an irregularity without delay and escalated the issue to the relevant officials. Markers are our first line of defense. Their expertise is one of the greatest strengths of the system. The Gauteng Department of Education officially alerted the National Department of Basic Education on the 2nd of December to an unusual similarity between answers provided by a candidate with the answer provided in the marking guideline for English Home Language Paper 2. This raised an immediate red flag and triggered what we call the standard protocols, starting with a preliminary investigation which confirmed that a breach had indeed occurred in respect to a few of the exam scripts. Let me be clear, this detection demonstrates the effectiveness of our system. The breach did not come through rumors. It was not discovered by chance. It was detected because markers whose training includes investigative marking are equipped to know the difference between authentic learner responses and content that should only be accessible to markers. This skill of marking plus our robust marking regime involves not less than 5 layers of quality assurance was how we were able to pick up the anomalies. Once alerted, the Department of Basic Education and the Gauteng Department of Education assembled a joint investigation team. The team began interviewing the first group of learners whose scripts were flagged and later expanded the interviews to additional learners likely to have been exposed to the material. A total of 26 learners were identified for interviews by the National Department of Education. The purpose of these interviews was carefully defined to understand whether learners accessed the material that they should not have been able to access prior to the exams, if so, to verify the extent of the breach, to assess whether the similarity in responses could be explained by legitimate means, and to determine which question papers, if any, had been compromised. The learners interviewed admitted to having had prior access to both English Home Language Paper 2, question paper, and the marking guideline. Upon studying the question paper, our investigators concluded that it could have only originated from the National Department of Basic Education's offices. Further investigation revealed that the breach extended beyond a single paper. Based on the interviews conducted up to this stage, we can confirm the following. The breach occurred at the offices of the DBE, where question papers are set. Of the 162 papers that we had set, 7 papers were accessed prior to the examination. These are English Home Language Paper 1, 2, and 3, Mathematics Paper 1 and 2, Physical Science Papers 1 and 2. These papers were shared via a USB storage device. The spread seems to be confined to 7 schools in a specific area in Pretoria. At this stage, there's no evidence to show that the breach has spread beyond this localized area. However, we are continuing our investigation. Our systems are robust. They've allowed us to identify the suspect involved is an employee of the DBE who has a child in grade 12. Evidence suggests that she received the question paper from another DBE employee who works within the examination unit. To ensure the highest level of independence, because this leak appears to have come from within the department, the Director General of the department has established a national investigative task team which will commence its work within the next 24 hours. The task team will include an independent chairperson, Umalusi, our quality assurer, University South Africa, SACA, DBE officials, and a private forensic investigator and our teacher unions. The mandate of the NITT is comprehensive. They are to confirm the exact source of the breach, confirm that the spread is indeed localized and limited to just these 3 subjects, identify all learners who access the question papers, recommend measures to safeguard the credibility of the 2025 NSC, and recommend steps to prevent future breaches. In addition, the following investigative mechanisms will be deployed: an appointment of an independent forensic investigator, investigative marking, which is a technique that we utilize where usually specially trained markers conduct an audit of the scripts looking out for any anomalies in the answers provided by a candidate. The verification of scripts, interviews with learners and invigilators, statistical analysis and comparative performance analysis, a correlation of exam marks with school-based assessment. In this area, we are looking to see and identify unexplained spikes in performance in a learner between their exams and their school assessments throughout the year. These tools will allow us to triangulate and verify the information scientifically and effectively. Umalusi, the Quality Assurance Council, has been notified and briefed on the breach. Now, we want to assure the country that 1, no results have been finalized, 2, no certification processes have begun, and 3, a preliminary report will be provided to the National Examination Irregularities Committee on the 29th of December, and the final report will be submitted to both myself as the Minister and Umalusi on the 31st of December this year. As the Minister, I will work with the team on New Year's Eve to study the report and ensure that we are ready to announce the final results on the 12th of January 2026. Our investigations show that this incident was limited to a few individual learners across 7 schools in the Pretoria area. There's no evidence of systemic, widespread breaches, and as such, we don't expect this to affect the credibility of the NSC. The transparency we are ensuring today is not an announcement of a system failure. It is to demonstrate the proof of our strengths in our systems. Even though we mark around 11 million scripts, our systems are able to detect breaches of this nature outlined here this morning. This is because the system is designed with multiple layers of protection, including secure setting and printing, strict distribution protocols, locked storage, trained invigilators, multi-tiered marking by skilled markers, moderation, and advanced statistical verification. Breaches are extremely rare, but when they occur, as they may in any system with human interaction, our protocols are clear, established, and are effective. The fact that only a limited number of scripts triggered our alarms, that markers escalated these observations as per their training, the system responded immediately and in full force, which demonstrates that it is working. It sends a clear message to the public. You cannot cheat the NSC and get away with it. We will detect it, we will investigate it, and there will be consequences. Now, I want to assure parents and learners and teachers in the Pretoria area, we will communicate directly with the 7 schools that are involved. The DBE staff members that are suspected of this involvement have been immediately suspended. The learners who are implicated will be afforded a due process and treated in accordance with our established processes. We are not making assumptions about guilt. Each case will be individually assessed. And on top of this, we have reported the incident to the South African Police Service for a criminal aspect of this case to be investigated. And this is quite important, that we're not only just following our own internal processes of the suspension of these employees within the DBE, but there are criminal elements of being in possession of stolen material of the state. And as a result, we have made sure that this matter has been reported as of yesterday with the South African Police Service. We follow zero tolerance approach to cheating in the NSC exams and are committed to supporting innocent learners who worked hard and played no part in this breach. And let me state firmly, any individual who attempts to manipulate the NSC exam system, whether a learner, an official, an outsider, will be detected. Our systems are designed to pick up these irregularities in responses, in writing patterns, in statistical outliers, and center-level trends. Those who try and cheat the system will not succeed. They will be detected. And we will leave no stone unturned, and we will not compromise the future of honest learners because of the actions of a few. I want to end this message to the young people of South Africa. Your matric certificate is a symbol of your effort, your resilience, and your integrity. When you cheat, it is not only about breaking the rules, but you undermine your future forever. Our society thrives when young people believe in and uphold the importance of fairness and hard work. And I want every learner to know that you never cheat to succeed. To the thousands of learners who wrote their papers honestly, we honor you by detecting those who cheated. This investigation is being conducted to protect you and your achievements and the value of the NSC certificate. And I also want to make this clear. Over 900,000 learners sat for the NSC exams. Our system picked up only 26 learners out of that number across 7 schools. And this is an important thing to remember, because we cannot allow the actions of a few to taint the almost 900,000 learners who sat for these exams, who put their heart and soul into working hard and making sure that they are showing up for their NSC exams. This is why we are having a zero tolerance to the corruption with our DBE officials and those who are implicated here. And that's why we want to deal with this and want to localize it to the area in which it has occurred, because we won't allow this incident to taint the actual credibility of the NSC results. In closing, and I want to summarize as following: our trained markers detected a breach. Our established protocols have contained it. It is investigated with the highest rigor. Umalusi, our quality assurer, has been briefed. The National Investigative Task Team will begin its work immediately to establish the full facts. This has been isolated to a few learners in 7 schools in the Pretoria area. The officials that are suspected to have been involved have been placed on immediate suspension. The matter has also been reported to the South African Police Service. South Africa can rest assured that any cheating in the NSC examinations will be detected. Our systems are strong and our professionals are vigilant, and we will always act to protect the integrity of our national examinations. And this is why we are taking the nation into our confidence to be able to tell you where we've detected breaches so that we can keep the integrity of the NSC intact. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. That is the announcement, colleagues. Our systems were able to pick up an anomaly in a few scripts. Those were investigated. We have uncovered about 26 learners in 7 schools were suspected or are suspected to have breached the examination processes. The investigation is currently underway, and I will call upon the exams unit to take us through the technical briefing as to how we were able to pick up these anomalies. Colleagues, I have sent you the presentation via WhatsApp. If you don't have it, please ask the colleague next to you to please share it with you kindly so you can be able to follow. But the other colleagues have it. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister, DG, ladies and gentlemen of the press, and everyone who's here this morning. I am going to just present to you a technical briefing providing a little more information with regards to our processes and how this breach was also picked up. So the purpose of my presentation is to brief the media on the breach that has been identified, which Minister has spoken about, and especially the mechanisms that are available to fully investigate the matter and to ensure the credibility and integrity of the examinations. Now, you would note that we concluded the writing of the NSC exams on the 27th of November with an opportunity for candidates who were unable to, who had technical difficulties, especially in computer applications technology and information technology, to rewrite. After that, marking commenced, and the examination proceeded very, very smoothly, with very, very few administrative issues that were dealt with according to our established protocols. I think it's important to understand that examinations are run in terms of the regulations for the conduct, administration, and management of the National Senior Certificate, which outlines and stipulates the procedures and protocols to be utilized for every aspect of the examination administration, right from the registration to the setting of papers, to the administration and conduct of the exam, to the marking, to the resulting processes. They're all clearly regulated, and those are the protocols that are followed. So on the 1st of December, as Minister indicated, marking commenced in the main. There was some marking that started actually on the 15th of November, what we call early sessions, for just a few, but the main marking, as Minister announced, commenced on the 1st of December. And we will be concluding by this weekend, by the 13th, which is on Saturday. There are processes in place for the ministerial announcement next year on the 12th of January, and the release to learners on the 13th of January by the different provinces. And so on the 2nd of December, during the marking process, the Department of Basic Education was informed by the Gauteng Department of Education that an anomaly had been identified during the marking of English Home Language Paper 2. You would realize that although question papers are centrally set, and they are administered across 9 provinces, and marking takes place across 9 provinces. So this anomaly was detected in Gauteng in the marking of English paper 2, where the scripts of 6 candidates demonstrated a very close resemblance to the marking guidelines. You would note that original marking guidelines, especially in questions that are novel, in terms of the CAPS, which is the Curriculum and Assessment Policy statements, on an annual basis, we must include novel and new questions because our children are being trained to be problem solvers and critical thinkers. So it's very anomalous to find multiple candidates writing exactly the same thing in a novel question, because there's no way they would have seen it or studied it previously. And so when this was reported, preliminary investigations were launched to the finding, and the following findings is what we had. Now, just to indicate a little bit about the investigations, it was conducted by both DBE and Gauteng officials of the department. And the first group of 5 candidates whose scripts showed that anomaly were interviewed, and we also interviewed a further 3 candidates. So altogether, 8 candidates were interviewed, and the focus of the interview was to find out from these candidates how it was possible for them to produce responses that so closely looked like the marking guideline, which had not been shared. I also want to indicate that in terms of our protocols, the marking guidelines are only shared after the question papers have been written. And so for them to have had answers that looked very close to the marking guidelines did point that there was something anomalous. Now, initially, the responses from the learners was an admission that they had prior access to not just the question paper, but also the marking guideline for English Home Language Paper 2. And that is why one or few of the candidates' answers were almost a verbatim copy of what you had in the marking guidelines. The marking guidelines, of course, have been identified as a document that comes from our offices at the DBE, because we are the ones that have those marking guidelines. And the additional learners that were interviewed have also indicated that the breach was beyond the English Home Language Paper 2, which was initially the one that was detected. And as Minister indicated, at this point in time, we have 3 subjects that have been suspected, that is English Home Language, mathematics, as well as physical sciences. Now, the information received from the interviews indicated that the question papers were shared via a USB storage device. And I think that is why it was possible for it to be contained or limited within a few schools and a few candidates. Because if it was shared by any other means, as we know today, it would have possibly spread so much wider. So the spread was contained to these 7 schools, or limited to these 7 schools in the area that we have mentioned. Now, the Minister has already said DG has established the National Investigation Task Team. And the task team will comprise key stakeholders, and they are listed as Umalusi, first of all, our Quality Assurance Council, because they have to pronounce on the credibility of this result. So they're going to be part of that task team, together with University South Africa, USAF, SAQA, South African Qualifications Authority. We will have our teacher union partners there as well, and of course, an independent forensic investigator. The Department of Basic Education, some officials will be part of this team for technical support purposes, and of course, there will be an appointment of an independent chairperson to chair and direct proceedings for this team. It is important that the National Investigation Task Team is able to confirm the source of the breach. While we have done our own preliminary investigations, but this task team will be independent, and therefore will be able to confirm what we have already picked up or refute if there was anything otherwise. But we're pretty sure of the information we have at this stage. They would also confirm the spread of the breach. It's important that we are able to confirm that this is not beyond the 7 schools as we know it for now. And of course, to identify the learners who may have had access to the question paper, and finally make recommendations to Umalusi as to the credibility of the 2025 examination as a whole, and make recommendations on how we prevent this in future. The mechanisms that are to be used, of course, I mentioned the appointment of a forensic investigator who's going to be a private investigator, so that this is done independently, especially because we have indicated that this emanated from the Department of Basic Education. So it's important that we get an independent person to also do that investigation. The investigative marking Minister spoke about is actually a system that is entrenched in our normal marking processes. All our markers are trained to mark investigatively. And you would note that in terms of marking, every marker marks per question. The system that is utilized in the marking of the NSC exam is not a whole script marking. So in other words, there's no learner script that is marked by one person, but is marked by multiple of markers according to the number of questions that are in that paper. So when a marker is marking only one question across a batch, it is very easy to pick up any anomalous patterns. And of course, they are also trained to detect special nuances, phrases, etc., that are uncommon. Even if learners have been taught by the same teacher, have memorized from the same script, it's impossible for multiple learners to write exactly the same thing with the same commas and full stops and apostrophes at the same areas with the same errors. So our markers are very well trained with that. And so a team of them will also be utilized to do investigative marking and verification. Investigative marking will be conducted in these 7 schools that have been, at this point, identified. And it will be done not only in English, mathematics and physical sciences, but also a few other subjects will be sampled, because finally we would want to be able to indicate to the public that we have even expanded the net and checked further and have come up with the same preliminary findings that we are presenting to you today, to be sure that this was limited to the papers that we are indicating and limited to the number of learners. When investigative marking is done in the scripts of learners of a school, the entire school script is marked investigatively, so that throughout that cohort you are able to identify. It's important that we do that so that the candidates who were not party to this are not tainted because of just a few learners who we have picked up anomalies in their scripts. These candidates will be interviewed again. We have a formal process of hearings. So once Gauteng department has formalized its processes, they will be able to draw up charge sheets for the candidates whose scripts are found to have any anomalous patterns, and they will give them the opportunity to present themselves and be interviewed. And so interview of candidates will be one of the things we do. Interview of invigilators as well, because we also would want to know whether our invigilators actually followed all the protocols with regards to the administration of the examination as stipulated. So there would be that, and there would be statistical analysis of the scripts where we compare analysis, we do a comparative analysis across question papers for the same candidates for that school over the years and for that particular subject over the years. Because that will also indicate to us if there's an anomalous pattern in terms of performance of that particular school in that particular subject for 2025 compared to previous years. We will also do a correlation of examination marks with their school-based assessment marks. Remember, the school-based assessment, they have done that over the year. And so we would compare what they have performed, how they have performed in the examination compared to how they have been performing throughout the year. So those are the various mechanisms that we would use to be able to corroborate our information and make sure that only candidates who are actually guilty are found guilty, and those who are not penalized for any reason. So in conclusion, I would want to say that The DBE will leave no stone unturned in getting to the bottom of this breach. The National Investigation Task Team, which is being established, will commence with its business by tomorrow, and the investigation will be fully completed prior to the release of results on the 13th of January. A preliminary report from the NITT will be presented to the National Examinations Irregularities Committee on the 29th of December and to the Minister and Umalusi on the 31st of December prior to the approval of results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Priscilla. Colleagues, that is the statement by the Minister, as well as the technical briefing with regards to how this was detected, how it is being investigated and managed, and the way forward. We can be able to assist our media colleagues with questions at this point to see if there are any clarities that you wish to put on record. Kevin?
Minister, good morning, as well as the delegation. I just want to know, can you tell me how many of the Department of Basic Education officials have been placed on suspension? And if you can just go through the mechanics again of how the leak occurred. I think you mentioned that it was a woman with a child in grade 12.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Kevin wants to know how many officials were involved and what were the mechanics of how they perpetrated this. I'll have Nasipi and then I'll come to you, Ibra.
Good morning, Nasipi from Newzroom. Minister, I just want to find out in terms of the sanctions for the identified learners, will they be failing the papers that they wrote to the subjects?
Well, what are the sanctions as per the protocols for a learner that is involved in such behavior? What's going to happen to them? Abra?
It's connected but also not connected to this. I know of a school, for instance, where on 2 occasions there were prank calls saying that there was a bomb in the school and the cops were brought in and, it would just delay the whole process. How many of those, or did you get many of those kinds of updates from schools around the country?
Thank you. Ibra is asking about any irregularities or disruptions to the exam process, especially the issue of bomb threats. If you can respond to that. And then the last question, and then we'll go to you, Minister.
I would just like to know what sort of sentence is the parent likely to face of the parent to give the examination?
Of a criminal nature. Okay. The last question is what sort of sentence would be meted out to a parent that is involved in such behaviors? I think Nasipi wants to have a second bite. I'll take it as a closing valve.
Do we know the position of the employee that was able to access the scripts?
Yeah, we can't share that information to identify the employee. We can tell you which units they were working in, but we can't. That's an identifying marker for that employee, and they still owed due process. Thank you very much, Minister. I'll ask you to answer these ones, and then the others that are requiring other officials, they will add, and then I'll come back to you, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. The question was asked about how many employees exactly in the DBE that were identified. We have 2 suspected employees from the Department of Basic Education. And these 2 individuals have both been suspended and they have been reported to the South African Police Service. As Lukhanyo has indicated, it's very important for the integrity of the investigation that we don't zoom into who these individuals are so that we can make sure that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot, because ultimately what we want to do, we want to lead to a successful prosecution, because we want to make sure that we send a clear message to the public that if you're a public servant and you are corrupt in our system, we will not tolerate it. So we want to make sure that the investigation is not tainted by us sharing information prematurely. But 2 individuals were identified. The mechanics are as follows. as I indicated, that an official who works within one of our units in the department who had access to the marking memos is effectively shared said memo or sold said memo, and I mean this is now alleged, to a parent of a grade 12 learner who works within the Department of Basic Education. Now, the reason why this is a criminal element is that one is not allowed to be in possession of stolen state property. And that is the element in which we've reported to the SAPS to investigate. So that is how we were able to lead to these two officials. The reason why we are able to zoom into these two officials, as Priscilla indicated, marking scripts or memoranda are not shared with schools until either the night before or the morning of. These learners that were interviewed indicated that they had had access to the marking memo before the time. And the only individuals who would be able to have access to those papers are people who work within the DBE, where the papers are set. So we were then able to zoom into our investigation in that way. However, it's also important, again, that I become not conclusive about the investigation so that the independent investigators are able to do their work so that they can recommend to me on the 31st of December. In terms of sanctions that we were asking, Dr. Mtembu tells me that individuals who are found guilty, if found guilty, again, we have to be extremely careful here. Any candidate who's found guilty to have cheated in an examination period is sanctioned to not be able to write in 3 exam cycles. So we don't speak of years of sanctions, we speak of exam cycles. So they would not be able to, let me make an example, an individual who's found guilty to have cheated would not be able to write an exam in the June exams of 2026, in the November exams of 2026, and in the June exams of 2026. And so, of course, then it shows you when you would be able to start writing exams again, which, you know, as I said, it's important that we report exactly how it is done. It's 3 exam cycles, and we don't speak of years of banning. Did schools get any threats? Yes, we had 1 or 2 incidents where there was a threat where the bomb squad was called, but we do want to say that it didn't affect the exam process at all. It was quickly resolved by the SAPS and the bomb squad. And then, as I said, again, the sanction that we are going for, or the criminal element that we are targeting here, is being both in possession of stolen state property. And that's why we're able to report both of these officials to the SAPS, because it's not just about our internal investigation that will determine what happens to them. We, on our side, have suspended them, but also the SAPS must investigate the criminal element, which is being in possession of stolen property. All right?
Thank you, Minister. Are there any questions that were not answered from the previous one before we go to you, Kev, for the next follow-up? Covered.
I just have a last question from my side. So it was the English paper 1, that paper 2, that the markers picked up the anomaly, and the learners were then interviewed, which then led you to the other papers of English, mathematics, and physical science. Or what is the status of those question papers? Did they say that they also have access to those others, or only English paper 2?
Okay, so the question is, were we able to detect on our own the other papers, or did we rely on them revealing that they participated?
What I want to know is, did they have access to those other subjects, question papers and memos as well? Or is this just part of an extended investigation?
All right, no, thank you. Priscilla, I think you can take this one. He wants to know what is the status of the other papers that we've included from the one initial to now talking about the 3 subjects and 7 papers in total.
Thank you very much. Yes, one or two of the candidates did indicate that they had access to physical sciences and maths, but not the other candidates. It would appear that some had access to one and others had access to 2 or 3. But as I said earlier, what we're going to do is we are going to extend our sample beyond these 3. We are literally going to investigate many more subjects in all those 7 schools that we have indicated could be implicated. So we are not going to limit our sample for investigative marking to English, maths, and physical sciences only. We will take other subjects as well so that we are able to ensure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Priscilla. I see Babalo is triggered. Please go ahead, sir.
Hi, thank you, Kanya. Hi, just clarity, Babalo Ndenze from EWN. As far as pursuing criminal charges or criminal complaints, is it limited to the official only, or is the parent also part of this?
Okay, the Minister will take that question. Thank you very much. Before we take this one, this is our last round, colleagues. Do we have any other questions? After this question, we are going to close.
I'm going to take a chance and ask if we're allowed to know which schools in Pretoria.
No, sir.
Okay. Babalo, we are in a unique position here where one of the officials is both the parent and an official of the department. So there are 2 officials. One of them is a parent of a grade 12 learner. So I think maybe I didn't make that clear a little bit earlier. So it's 2 officials who also have, one of the officials also happens to be the mom. With regards to your question, Kevin, about revealing the schools' names, we oscillated about this because we want to be as transparent as possible. The problem, though, is that should we reveal the names of the school, it's going to create mass panic for both learners and parents. And so we will individually connect with the schools and work with them, but we don't want to cause unnecessary panic. These schools are in a specific area in Pretoria, and through our systems we're able to identify them and narrow them down, but we really want to assure parents and learners of the sanctity of this process, especially learners who showed up and who worked hard and who wrote their exams. Because once you start tainting a school, what happens is that the entire school gets a reputation. And those learners who have fairly written their NSC exam are now somehow tainted by the actions of a few. That's why I indicated earlier that 900,000 candidates wrote, 26 learners were unethical. That is, statistically, that is a small fraction of what we saw. And so it's important for us to protect the integrity of the NSC in its entirety. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's last questions.